Welcome is Liverpool Alexander Isak transfer news. Liverpool target breaks silence to declare he can't continue at Newcastle. Deny giving Alexander Isak a commitment he could leave this summer as the striker pushes for a move to Liverpool, and say they do not foresee the player being sold as the conditions required for them to sanction a sale are unlikely to transpire in the final weeks of the window. Liverpool target Alexander Isak says his relationship with Newcastle can't continue and changes in the best interests of everyone, as he accused the club of broken promises over his future. Hours after the striker delivered his bombshell statement, Newcastle responded by refuting Isak's suggestion he was told he could leave this summer and insisted they do not foresee the player being sold, as their terms are unlikely to be met. Isak's potential sale has always been dependent on Newcastle signing an adequate replacement and a club meeting their 150 million valuation. With less than 2 weeks left in the window, neither of those conditions have been met. Newcastle make initial 35 million bid for Brentford's Yoane Wissa transfer centre live. Liverpool news and transfers, Liverpool fixtures and scores. Newcastle news and transfers, Newcastle fixtures and scores. Isak, 25, is currently training away from his teammates and arrived at the Newcastle United training ground just after 3 p.m. on Wednesday, the day after he posted the statement on social media. Newcastle added in their reply, "Alex remains part of our family and will be welcome back when he is ready to rejoin his teammates." Isak's explosive statement said, "I've kept quiet for a long time while others have spoken. That silence has allowed people to push their own version of events, even though they know it doesn't reflect what was really said and agreed behind closed doors. The reality is that promises were made, and the club has known my position for a long time. To now act as if these issues are only emerging is misleading. When promises are broken and trust is lost, the relationship can't continue. That's where things are for me right now, and why change is in the best interests of everyone, not just myself." Newcastle's statement in response read, "We want to keep our best players, but we also understand players have their own wishes, and we listen to their views. As explained to Alex and his representatives, we must always take into consideration the best interests of Newcastle United, the team and our supporters in all decisions, and we have been clear that the conditions of a sale this summer have not transpired. We do not foresee those conditions being met. This is a proud football club with proud traditions, and we strive to retain our family feel. Alex remains part of our family and will be welcome back when he is ready to rejoin his teammates." Sky Sports News reported in July that Isak had informed Newcastle he wanted to explore his options this transfer window. At the start of August, Liverpool had a 110 million plus add-ons bid rejected by Newcastle for the 25-year-old. Isak took his frustrations public on Tuesday with an update on Instagram posted during the PFA Awards ceremony, which he skipped despite being nominated for the top prize of Player of the Year due to his current standoff with Newcastle. He said, "I'm proud to be recognised by my fellow professionals with a place in the PFA Premier League team of the season for 2024 and 25. First and foremost, I want to thank my teammates and everyone at Newcastle United who has supported me along the way. I'm not at the ceremony tonight. With everything going on, it didn't feel right to be there. Newcastle have so far failed to bring in a striker to cover the loss of Callum Wilson, let alone Isak. They have been unsuccessful this summer with attempts to sign Hugo Ekitike and Benjamin Sesko, both of whom were considered potential successors to Isak, and have very limited options with less than 2 weeks left of the window. Newcastle had a 25 million bid rejected for Yoane Wissa earlier in the window, but made a new bid worth 35 million plus add-ons on Wednesday. Wissa is viewed by Newcastle as a second-choice striker, and his potential arrival would likely not help Isak get his move. Other than Isak, Newcastle currently only have one recognised striker on their books in 22-year-old William Osula, who did not start a single Premier League game for the club last season. Analysis. Newcastle have tried to give Isak his move, Sky Sports News' Keith Downey. Newcastle are stressing here that they have been unable to find a suitable replacement for Alexander Isak, coupled by Liverpool's opening bid falling significantly below the striker's valuation. Had Newcastle managed to sign Hugo Ekitike or Benjamin Sesko, who joined Liverpool and Manchester United respectively, then in all likelihood the club would have reluctantly sold Isak to Liverpool with an increased bid from the Premier League champions. Newcastle have tried hard to facilitate and give Isak his wish, but they cannot leave themselves without a recognised striker. Unless something out of the blue comes up between now and the window closing on September 1st, it appears Isak will be staying. If and when he plays again is another story. What would it take for Newcastle to sell Isak now? Latest from Sky Sports News, Keith Downey. Newcastle talked last night about the conditions of a sale. There were two conditions. One, the valuation of the player is 150 million. That is what Newcastle's valuation is. I still think they would probably do a deal for a little bit less than that. But I think Liverpool's 110 million offer that landed a few weeks ago is way short. So if Liverpool were to really seriously want Isak, they would have to come to the table with a higher bid. The second is that Newcastle need to find a replacement. They tried on Benjamin Sesko, they tried on Hugo Ekitike, failed on both of those. They're actually even struggling right now, as we can see, to bring in a replacement for Callum Wilson, who left on a free contract. We've been telling you for weeks now that they've been trying to sign Yoane Wissa from Brentford. But he's seen as the Callum Wilson replacement rather than the Alexander Isak replacement. So they can't even get the second striker in, if you like. If they were able to land Wissa in the next few days, and I'm expecting a bid in the next couple of days, and Liverpool came to the table offering 130 million €, then Newcastle might have a decision to make. However, it would leave them very light on striker reinforcements. That is what Newcastle's valuation is. I still think they would probably do a deal for a little bit less than that. But I think Liverpool's 110-metre offer that landed a few weeks ago is way short. So if Liverpool were to really seriously want Isak, they would have to come to the table with a higher bid. The second is that Newcastle need to find a replacement. They tried on Benjamin Sesko, they tried on Hugo Ekitike, failed on both of those. They're actually even struggling right now, as we can see, to bring in a replacement for Callum Wilson, who left on a free contract. We've been telling you for weeks now that they've been trying to sign Yoane Wissa from Brentford. But he's seen as the Callum Wilson replacement, rather than the Alexander Isak replacement. So they can't even get the second striker in, if you like. If they were able to land Wissa in the next few days, and I am expecting a bid in the next couple of days, and Liverpool came to the table offering 130 million, then Newcastle might have a decision to make. However, it would leave them very light on striker reinforcements. July 15th. Liverpool told Isak not for sale in this window after making informal approach to Newcastle, and decide to rival them for Hugo Ekitike instead after being rebuffed. July 19th. Eddie Howe reveals after pre-season friendly defeat at Celtic that Isak travelled with the rest of the squad to Glasgow, but he chose to send him home due to the speculation around him. July 23rd, Liverpool beat Newcastle to the signing of Ekitike from Eintracht Frankfurt after the North East club had already missed out on Liam Delap and João Pedro. July 24th. Isak is not included in Newcastle's squad for pre-season tour of Asia due to what Newcastle described as a minor thigh injury. July 24th. It later emerges that Isak has informed Newcastle he wants to explore his options in this transfer window. July 31st. Sky Sports News reports that Isak is training individually at former club Real Sociedad's facilities. August 1st. Newcastle reject an official bid from Liverpool for Isak worth 110 million plus add-ons. August 2nd. Newcastle make formal bid to RB Leipzig for Benjamin Sesko, worth nearly 70 metres, and Isak later flies back to the northeast after his personal training camp in Spain. August 4th. The striker returns to Newcastle's training ground for the first time and has trained separately from his teammates ever since. August 4th. Newcastle up their offer to RB Leipzig for Sesko amid interest